Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into Stoicism, but hold on, don't click away if you've heard it all before.
Yeah, we're going way beyond the surface here.
Exactly. We're mainly using Massimo Pigliucci's How to Be a Stoic as our guide, and let me tell you, this book is far from your typical dry philosophy.
It's true. Pigliucci really brings it to life with personal stories, practical exercises. It's actually very relatable.
Which is what I loved about it. He even connects it to modern psychology, which I found fascinating. But before we get too far, for anyone listening who might be thinking, Stoicism, isn't that like ancient history? Why should this ancient philosophy still matter in our crazy modern world?
Because even though it's ancient, the problems Stoicism tackles are incredibly relevant. Think about it. Dealing with anxiety in our always-on world, trying to find purpose when everything feels chaotic. These are things we all struggle with.
Oh, and don't forget relationships. Dealing with difficult people is a tale as old as time.
Exactly. And Stoicism offers some really useful tools for navigating all of that.
Okay, so no more teasing.
Yeah.
Let's unpack some of those tools, shall we?
Yeah.
First up, one of the core principles of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control,
Right, and this one's all about recognizing what you can influence and what you can't.
which Pigliucci perfectly illustrates with that story about the stolen lamp, remember, with Epictetus.
Oh, that's a great one.
It's stuck with me ever since I read it,
Yeah.
because it's not about being passive in the face of misfortune. It's about recognizing what you can control, like your reaction.
Exactly. Epictetus didn't waste energy freaking out about the lamp being stolen. He focused on what he could do next.
That's just such a powerful lesson. So instead of dwelling on things outside your control, focus on what you can do about it. For example, I always think about it, if my phone gets stolen, knocks on wood, Stoicism isn't saying, oh, well, too bad. It's about asking yourself, okay, what's my next move?
Exactly. What can you actually do about the situation?
And that focus on controlling our reactions reminds me of another big Stoic principle, that obstacles are opportunities for growth.
Absolutely. This doesn't mean pretending bad things don't happen. It's more about choosing how you respond, asking yourself, what can I learn from this?
And Pigliucci really drives this home with his own experiences, the way he talks about dealing with the deaths of his parents. First one way, then completely differently. It's incredibly powerful.
It shows that Stoicism is a journey, not a quick fix,
Totally. And it made me think about that concept of preferred indifference. I'll admit, at first I was like, what does that even mean? It sounded so strange.
I get it. It sounds a bit cryptic. But it's basically about understanding that while things like wealth or good health are nice to have,
They shouldn't be what defines your happiness.
exactly, it's about not pinning your well-being on things that can be taken away, like enjoying a delicious meal. That's great, but it shouldn't come at the cost of, say, your integrity or your values.
It's like that story Pigliucci tells about choosing not to eat at 11 Madison Park because it would have meant going against his principles.
It's about making conscious choices that align with what's important to you.
It's about being mindful, I think. Not just blindly chasing after things that might not actually matter in the grand scheme of things. It's so easy to get caught up in wanting the latest gadget or whatever, you
Right.
know. But that actually reminds me of something else Pigliucci talks about that really struck me. Memento mori.
Ah, yes. Remembering that you are mortal.
I'll admit, at first I thought, okay, a little dark, don't you think? But the way he frames it, it's not about being morbid at all.
It's about appreciating what you have right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like he talks about kissing your loved ones goodnight
Yeah.
and really being present in that moment, knowing that nothing is guaranteed.
It's about savoring those seemingly ordinary moments because they are, in fact, incredibly precious.
It's so true. It's like that quote, how does it go? Something like, life is a series of ordinary moments made extraordinary by our awareness.
I love that.
And memento mori seems to be all about cultivating that awareness,
Mm.
right? Which I guess kind of ties into the reserve clause, which is another thing we wanted to dig into. Although, honestly, when I first read about this one, I wasn't so sure.
What tripped you up?
Well, it sounded a little passive, like just accepting whatever life throws at you, even if it's bad.
I see. But it's not about being passive at all. It's more about having that mental flexibility.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
So accepting that things might not always go as planned, BUT, and this is key, choosing how you react.
Okay, so give us an example. How do you actually use this reserve clause?
Well, Pigliucci uses the example of theater tickets, right? Imagine you've been looking forward to seeing this show forever, and then you get there, and the seats are terrible.
The worst.
The worst. But you can still choose how you let that affect your night. You could let it ruin the whole experience or focus on enjoying the performance anyway.
It's not about just settling, it's about perspective.
Right, exactly. It's about saying, okay, this part isn't ideal, but T, what is in my control? How can I still make the most of this?
It's like having a mental plan B for when things inevitably go sideways.
I like that. And speaking of things that inevitably go sideways sometimes, I think it's interesting how Stoicism approaches relationships, particularly loneliness and the different kinds of friendships we have.
Yeah, I was really surprised by this section. I mean, you don't usually think of ancient philosophy and friendship as like going hand in hand.
It's true. But even philosophers like Aristotle, back in ancient Greece, recognized that friendships aren't all created equal.
It's true. You've got friendships built on shared interests, friendships where you just have a good time, and then those deeper ones based on like mutual respect and shared values. Right.
Yeah, and the cool thing is each type serves a purpose. But I think you've hit on something really important with that word, values. Because ultimately, becoming more stoic isn't just about, reading about it and having these aha moments.
Right. It's got to be about more than just theory.
Exactly. It's about actually living those principles, which I'll admit can be a bit daunting. But that's where Pigliucci's approach really shines, I think. He focuses a lot on role models and not just like these perfect, untouchable figures.
Right. Like he talks about Cato, who was known for being incredibly disciplined, but then also Seneca, who, let's be real, wasn't always perfect.
Yeah, he had his flaws, just like all of us.
But I think that actually makes it more inspiring, because it shows that Stoicism isn't about being perfect. It's about striving to be better.
It's about the journey, right? And finding inspiration from those who've walked the path before us. And that's not limited to ancient history either. Pigliucci connects these Stoic ideas to more modern figures too, like Viktor Frankl.
Oh, wow, yeah. Finding meaning in the midst of the Holocaust. Talk about resilience.
Exactly. It's that Stoic idea of focusing on what you can control, even in the most extreme circumstances. And it's interesting how those same principles are echoed in, like, modern therapy even.
Oh, totally. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. I mean,
Hmm.
that's all about recognizing how your thoughts influence your feelings and
Mhm.
actions, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing those unhelpful thought patterns and, well, choosing differently. So it's amazing to see how these ancient philosophies are still so relevant today?
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I have a question for you. If you could only pick one stoic exercise, technique, whatever, from Pigliucci's book to really focus on, just one to implement in your own life, which one would you pick and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think for me, it would have to be the dichotomy of control. It just always brings me back to center,
Yeah.
reminding myself, okay, what can I actually influence here? It really helps manage stress and worry, that's for sure.
It's such a powerful tool for sure. I think for me, it would have to be that memento mori concept. Yeah. I know it sounds a little morbid at first, but honestly, trying to be more aware of the preciousness of time of each moment, it's been really impactful, honestly.
That's awesome. And it really shows how these, sometimes when you first hear them, they sound so abstract, but they can have such practical applications.
Exactly. It's not about becoming some kind of like stoic robot. It's just about making small changes to your perspective, to your mindset.
And those small changes can add up to big shifts in how you experience life.
100%.
Mm.
And on that note, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. We really just scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to explore with Stoicism.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep those minds open, keep exploring those ancient philosophies, and most importantly, keep applying what you learn.